Good evening, everyone. We'll get started with the Manjushri prayer first, followed by refuge and the Heart Sutra. I pay homage to the Guru and Lord Arya Manjushri. Your intelligence shines forth like the sun, unclouded by the two obscurations. You hold the scripture text in your heart, symbolic of the seeing of all things as they are. Those who are caught in the prison of samsara are confused in the darkness of ignorance and are overwhelmed by their sufferings. In 60 ways with your speech you teach migratory beings to whom you are compassionate as your only child. Your proclamation of Dharma is like a roaring thunder, which awakens beings from the stupor of delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma. You wield the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. Primordially pure, your princely body is the embodiment of the perfection of a bodhisattva dwelling on 10th bhumi. I pay homage to Manjushri, who dispels my ignorance, whose body is adorned with the 112 marks of Buddha. With the brilliance of your wisdom, O compassionate one, illumine the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence, wisdom, so that I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and texts that explain them. Omara bhajana di amara 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 Omara bhajana di amara 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 Omara bhajana di amara 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 bhajana Amara bhajana di 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 amara Omara bhajana di 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 In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach. By the merit of listening to this teaching, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach. By the merit of listening to this teaching, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach. By the merit of listening to this teaching, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. May all living beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separated from the bliss that is soulless. May all living beings leave attachment and hatred towards their ones living with equanimity. May all living beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separated from the bliss that is sorrowless. May all living beings leave attachment and hatred towards their ones afar by living with equanimity. May all living beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May all living beings free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separated from the bliss that is sorrowless. May all living beings live attachment and hatred towards near ones afar by living with equanimity. To the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother, I pay homage. Thus I have heard at one time, the Blessed One Bhagavan was dwelling in Rajgriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of Sangha and a great assembly of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in samadhi with enumeration of phenomena called profound illumination. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, the Mahasattva, Superior Avalokitesha, was contemplating the meaning of the profound perfection of wisdom, and that he saw the five aggregates also empty of inherent existence. And then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, the Mahasattva, Superior Avalokitesha: how should a son or daughter of good lineage train who wishes to practice profound perfection of wisdom? And thus he spoke, and the Bodhisattva, the Mahasattva, Superior Avalokitesha said this to Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good lineage wishes to practice profound perfection of wisdom should view in this way. They should correctly view those five aggregates also empty of inherent existence. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. Empty is not other than form, empty is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, in the same way, all phenomena are merely empty, that is without characteristic. They are not created, they do not cease, they do not have them no impurity, they are not devoid of impurity, they do not decrease, increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no phenomena. And there is no eye element and so forth, up to no mind element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no cessation, no path, no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because bodhisattvas have no attainment, they depend on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Because their minds are without obstruction, they are without fear. Having completely passed beyond all error, they go to the completion nirvana. All the Buddhas abide in the three towns, having relied on the perfection of wisdom, become manifestly perfect Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom is the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, equal mantra unequal, mantra that thoroughly pacifies all sufferings, because it is not false, it should be known as truth. Mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Tadyadam gade gade bara zangade bodhi zova. Tadyadam 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 gade bara Parazangade Bodhi Zova, Dadyadam Gade Barang, 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 Parazangade Bodhi Zova, Dadyadam Gade bara zangade bodhizo. Tadyadam 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 gade bara zangade bodhizo. Shariputra, Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train the profound perfection of wisdom that way. Then the Blessed One arose from the Samadhi, said to Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Superior Avalokitesha, well done. One of good lineage, it is just one of good lineage is like that. The profound perfection is just as you have taught it. Even the Tathagatas will rejoice in this. The Blessed One, having so spoken, Venerable Shariputra, Bodhisattva, the Mahasattva, Superior Avalokitesha, all those gathered there, and those who were gods, humans, and demigods, and Gandharvas were filled with admiration and praised the words of the Blessed One. Being able to find a tool to solve a problem is always on our mind. whatever we're doing, we always find a better way of doing things than we have done in the past. Be that with physically try to make something, whether it's in cooking or whether it's transporting or whether it's building or whatever we're trying to do, we always try to improve the most efficacious way that is far better than the previous ways of doing things. And of course, this is even being able to produce the most effective smartphone. Then that was the last edition, or then there was past 4 edition. They always try to make a most effective way, mode of use of what they call, even they have been calling it for a while smartphone, but here in this case is the most smartest, most sharpest and most intelligent way is to not try to build the ego or look after the self, but try to make the self useful, not harmful interference, but useful servant and a beneficial person. So unless this egocentric mind is recognized as the biggest cause of the hindrances and obstacles, no matter what we try to do, it is always going to be impeded by this very ego grasping. So hence what in Buddhism they call one who reached great spiritual heights is called foe destroyer. Most people do not misperceive the real foe. They don't see the real enemy at all. They see the object external to oneself as the enemy, and they waste all of their resources, all their ammunition, try to fire at that alleged object or enemy out there. Whatever it is that people have problem, they always try to find something out there and try to conquer and destroy that. Now, in the Mahayana teachings, very distinct from even some general Buddhism. General Buddhism is talking about renunciation, renouncing something, objects or place or situation, so that we come out freer of their influence on us. So the idea of being able to see the selfishness as something we should part from does not occur very much. So this particular text, turning the wheel of sharp weapons, is very much how to do that, how to make it happen, make it recognize that it's the selfishness that one needs to overcome, and one needs to recognize. Whenever there is a problem, one should recognize it is caused by this demon of selfishness. Often we are not able to think like that. We don't have the mental fitness to think like that. We always try to point something or someone out there as the cause of the problem. And so on, or maybe someone else's anger, someone else's selfishness. Yeah, he's so selfish. So it's someone else's selfishness. That's pretty good, that at least recognizing is the selfishness. The only problem is the other person's selfishness that is impinging on us, and that is impeding on us. And so usually people try to point how selfish and egotistical the other person is, and then they think if they succeed to do that, then their problem may be minimized. But reaching this height of mind where it's one recognition of one's own selfishness, then empowers us to all our life's unpleasant experiences as trick and activities of the very selfishness now manifesting and ripening as a karma. And being able to do that is very powerful, because then it doesn't make us to react and duplicate the problem. It doesn't make us to become aggressive to the problem or the cause of the problem or alleged cause of the problem, because we more recognize the root cause of the problem. So we are not going to practice aggression with aggression, and abuse with abuse, and harm with harm, because we know that even though we can silence someone by doing more harm that they are doing, though it may give some small temporal relief, but actually is very mistaken. It's actually a demon of selfishness still left unrecognized. So that's why this Dharmarakshita's whole composition is a great, I would say, a great development of the Buddhist thought. Someone talking like this, talking about seeing all of one's life experiences as tricks and creation activities of the selfishness. So we have been going through that, and we will now move on. This is the bottom of page 4, the second last paragraph. There is no doubt that this that it is this self-grasping indeed. How often we say this, when something's happening, this self-grasping. Don't you think it's self-grasping? Yes, it is indeed my self-grasping. It straight away stops us from reacting and all of that. Straight away swallows with some kind of pride, swallow our own pride, and humbly sort of retreat from the aggression, from the bad mouthing. It sort of straight away makes us peaceful from being rained, showered, snowed under the problem. Amazing. This is a great the expression of surprise. They're recognizing, this self-grasping is this useful. It prevents us from firing again. This time we wouldn't fire. This time we wouldn't react. Now, Yamantaka. See, now he calls Yamantaka. Yama is the killer. Taka is Yamantaka is the killer of one who stops death. One who caused the death of the Yama. Yama is the because Yama is the what which causes death. So each time we think it's someone else, we're dying all the time. Each time we think it's somebody else, we are dying. Each time we think it's our fault, we are killing that killer. We are arresting that killer. We recognize Yamantaka. Brandishing. Now he's talking about Yamantaka as a deity. Yeah? Yamantaka, as I mentioned, is a wrathful Manjushri. Yeah? Because Manjushri is Buddha of wisdom, and when the peaceful form of Manjushri is holding a sword of wisdom, and Yamantaka is a little bit more wrathful form, brandishing the weapon of karma over his head, Because the very karma is falling on our head. Very karma that is ripening on our head. Spin the wheel 3 times. It's not once, please. Spin more times, because it will exhaust the karma. As once is not enough. Once is not enough. Fiercely over his head. So you're actually imploring Yamantaka, this awareness, this mind that is cognizant of the self-cherishing, which previously had slayed harmfully. This time we're going to slay it for helpfully. This time will be useful killing. Your legs of two truths spread apart. So he calls the 2 legs of Manjushri of Yamantaka as true truth, the truth of relative and ultimate truth. Yeah, relative truth is acceptance of relative interdependence of each other, and then and then have compassion. When you understand relative truth, you have compassion. When you don't have the understand relative truth, you think one is the only cause. The other has nothing to do with it. And because of that, we don't have compassion, but aggression. When we have the relative truth, we understand the interdependence of both, and if neither of them are not understanding it, then you feel compassion. You see, that's you have to relate to each other's share of suffering, and therefore not dismiss them as emptiness, but embrace them as suffering. Yeah. Embrace them as suffering, so relative truth. And ultimate truth is, and in spite of the relative reality, ultimately there is no really truly existing suffering. And so that's why the Yamantaka's two legs spread apart is like a union of this combination of the relative and ultimate truth, compassion and wisdom. Because when we're practicing, say, it's all fault of selfishness, is self-compassion as well as wisdom, It's not kind of chastising the self, because if there is no truly existing self, you can't be too much of a problem, ultimate level, But in many ways, it is kindness towards ourselves, to practicing arresting of selfishness. It's the most kindest thing we can do. It is not so much that we are belting ourselves. We are actually being kind to ourselves, relatively. That's the kindest we can do, And we are not only that, we are also practicing that kind of compassion with wisdom. So, therefore, the two legs is this reminder for people to not forget compassion with wisdom and wisdom with compassion. Merely conceptual emptiness have a danger of falling into a nihilistic way. So, uniting compassion and wisdom and eyes of method and wisdom wide open. You can see very clearly where's relative truth, where's the relative anguish of each other. You can see that their suffering or one's own suffering is relatively interdependent. They are both interdependent on each other. But when sentient beings don't know, they think one is the only cause of each other, and they have no humility to think their own addition or doing has any party to it. So therefore, your eyes are really looking. You cannot blink and close your eyes even one moment, because it's so easy to not see the relative contribution from both sides. So therefore, the true eyes of method and wisdom wide open, never closing, never blink a moment, and never close eyes too, because you may think it's the other one entirely responsible. You might think entirely it's my own fault. That is also no useful. That's just as bad, thinking it's all my fault, because in Lojong teaching, to think it's accept the blames doesn't mean it's all your fault, You have to see that, Of course, saying that it's your fault means when you accept that, it empowers you, then it blames you, Usually, no, negatively speaking, when people blame themselves, they think it's all their fault, isn't it? And so we have to be careful when we interpret the idea of it's all my fault. It's not saying nothing is any one person's entire fault. It's many, many other factors in there. So that's why you're looking very clearly all the non-yous and the persons doing that is really contributed to it. When you acknowledge that very clearly, with your fangs of four powers bared, so my Yamantaka's four fangs bared, the bad fangs means he's using all the powers. These four powers usually refers to the power of reliance, the power of regret, power of promise, and power of restoration. Because when you are practicing the idea of it's all my fault. You have to have refuge. You shouldn't just say, oh, it's all my fault. You have to have refuge in the teaching, that this teaching is giving me peace by thinking this. You shouldn't think, oh, doing this is really harmful to me. I can't take this anymore. Then you don't have refuge. You don't have refuge. You don't have power of life. You got to know this is the highest refuge. To see the fault of self-cherishing is the highest refuge. It may look very hazardous on the surface, but it's the most peaceful, most kindest thing you can do. Power of lines, and power of regret. Previously we didn't know how to do this. We just belatedly realizing, this is the real teaching. This is the kernel of the Mahayana teachings. Previously we might be interested in other aspects of the teaching primarily, but now we become really, this is the essence of all the teachings. And so now we have positive regret over the past, but we have positive promise for the future. Power of promise. So you have to bear your fangs, so that you bite the past mistakes with humility and regret, and you actually even more you bear your fangs so that you will not do that in the future. Power of promise. And power of confidence that this will be the way to do. Strike the enemy, strike this enemy of lack of conscience. I said this enemy isn't a person here. It's a lack of conscience, lack of this fitness to see. It's just the awareness, lack of awareness. The king of spells refers to the mantra, who confounds the enemy's mind. So this means that if you can paralyze the mind of the ego, an egotistical mind, usually very, very active and very, very rampant, you try to sort of almost hesitate that normal egotistical mind is the king of spells. You actually cast a spell on your mind, meaning mindfulness, really. Enemy's mind, who involuntarily, while brandishing the weapon of karma, runs amok in the forests of samsara. So he likens to this out of control ego, causing a lot of damage in the worldly drama of samsara, so to speak. This savage called self-grasping demon. So this demon, self-grasping, is a savage. It's like the enemy of all enemies. Summon this oathbreaker. Oathbreaker refers to one who has taken vows to practice bodhicitta, to put others first, but one is try to put oneself ahead of others. So this is oath breaking, according to Bodhisattva. That's oath breaking. Always saying, I want this, I don't like this, I. So this Mahayana oath breaking is, I didn't get this, I don't like this, I don't have this, I don't get listened to. All these are, I wasn't loved. All these are from the Mahayana. One should say, I receive everything. I have everything. I have everything. Such a thinking, all this complaining, complainer in oneself. Oh, I didn't get loved. Oh, I don't get this. My life isn't good. I got too many problems. This is the bodhicitta mind should put others first. Think of what others are very kind to me or whatever. The oath breaker is one who forgets the kindness of other people. Remember when the bodhicitta you practice, you remember who they are, like mother, and remember her kindness, and try to repair kindness. That is the main oath. Instead of saying what I didn't get from my mother. So here, summon this oath breaker who betrays self and others. He's betraying both. You may betray yourself. It's okay. but you betray all the sentient beings. And all the sentient beings, particularly having taken the Bodhisattva vow, definitely this savage is forgetting all his vows. So summon him. Yeah, this summon on him is a typing error, typo there. Summon him. Summon him. Wrathful Yamantaka, and calling the wrathful Yamantaka is already wrathful, meaning showing the very, very wrathful form. Strike him. The strike, the one you're referring to is Yamantaka, asking Yamantaka to strike him. Yamantaka carries a thunderbolt and a dagger. Well, this will be the torpedoes. Vajrayana torpedo. Torpedo. Strike him with the Vajrayana torpedo. And almost pierce, pierce the heart of enemy. You see, it says pierce because it not only strikes like this, but it's just constantly returning, constantly spinning. Pierce the heart of this enemy, the self, Almost like, recognizing the self and have a little jerk in oneself. Oh, it's this ego again. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer. False conception. Yeah, so this is saying that trample on the head of this ego and destroy his conception. That is the fault of others. Make him to realize that it is his own self-centeredness that has created these things. Mortally strike at the heart of this butcher and enemy, ego, So it's symbolically speaking, strike at the heart of this butcher, because this ego is shameless. It actually thinks the people who have been kind, they think they have been harmed, So they even would bark at them, speak bad words against them. They will throw at them and yell at them. It's like a hurting the feelings of someone, like you're like butchering them, like hurting them. If it's just symbolic speaking, hurting someone's feeling by sharp tongue is like a butcher, really. So this enemy, the ego, hung is a syllable. Hung and za and pe are used here. These are you can see how Dharmarakshita is using esoteric terms and spells. Hung. This hung refers to the mind. This hung is enabling oneself to witness that it's one's own mind. It's one's own mind. Show your powers, O Almighty Protector. So it's really saying we have the intrinsic power within us. We just have to unleash it appropriately in arresting the ego and recognizing the ego. If you do that, then real protector. Then you will never suffer next time. You will never complain next time saying they did this to me. Then you are the mighty protector. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to be protected by someone out there. The attitude itself is it's never harmed by others. How can you need a protection from others? When you know the real harm is your ego, now ego has been recognized, then there's no harm can come from outside at all. So therefore you are completely, comprehensively protected. Comprehensively protected. Za actually means is a word of summoning. Word of summoning, and you summon this ego, recognize this ego, stare at this ego, and bind this enemy tight. So meaning that you almost have a feeling. If you have arrested the man perpetrator, you have a feeling. Oh, now at least we can put the feet up, like this. Now now that you have really recognized and summoned and bind this ego tight, so that it's not loosely able to slip away. Pe means so be it. Set us free from all bondage. Yeah, from now onwards, no suffering will ensue, because the very cause of suffering, the ego has been apprehended, has summoned, and then now has been bound tight. Because he cannot reach his hands or legs to do any harm, you will be free from all bondages. All upsettable, all vulnerability, all offendability in you will cease. Destroy. Yeah, break the knot of the self-grasping. It's because this doesn't mean a knot of self-grasping. There is this wrong view as the self is truly existing. Whether it's the body or whether it's the feeling or whether it's of the feeling or something like that. Now, when one loosens the knot. When one break the knot, when one loosens the knot, like we were reading in Heart Sutra, that the form is emptiness and feeling is emptiness and so on. And when you are able to unknot them, you basically disassemble all of these. You can see everything is something else, but not the self. So everything else is something else. Where is the self? The self is not found. So there isn't. So prior to that, there was this concept as if there was truly existing self-grasping. So the grasping, if there was a true self, if there was a self to be grasped at, of course. But now they realize there's by the time one break the knot, there is nothing the knot is holding, except the knot itself. So it was a pure misconception. So this is the kind of a meditation on emptiness, really. Even though words are metaphoric, words are used to arrest and kill and bind and so on, means recognize your mind, You can't burn your mind in the fire. You can't drown in the mind. You can't hit a hammer to it. The more you see emptiness of it, and the less it now manifests in any form. So the clarity of the mind is more manifestly. Then the misconception of the independent or true existing is now completely annihilated by right view, So break the knot means have a sigh of relief that there is no real truly existing self. It's body is not me, feeling is not me. No, they are there, but they are not. They are something else. They are bones. They are flesh, and they are not identical to what we think was I or self. There is no self that is identical to any of them. So by the time we look into anything, everything when we break apart, there isn't anything that is truly to grasp at. Appear before me, O Yamantaka, my meditation deity. So that this, of course, appear before me. One who sees the deity is one who sees his non-self, his own emptiness. The self, one who sees the emptiness of self, then sees the deity, but emptiness of the deity, of course. But until he sees the emptiness of mind, he have to visualize the deity. So being able to see, if you can see the deity, for a dualistic person, they think they saw the deity and he will guide me. But in a Vajrayana concept, when you see the deity, you have to see its emptiness. Deity is only form to test your realization of emptiness there or not. If you develop grasping to the deity, it's not a realization of deity, it's a realization of imagination. So therefore, seeing deity may be propounded as if a sign of meditation or something, but it's only a sign of a beginning of a meditation. Seeing the deity is not that difficult, especially if there are painting and statues all over the place. You can say, I saw the deity. If we think the statue is the deity, there's a big problem. See, that's why form is emptiness. We are not making all the statues to see the deities. That when you think the statue is a deity, they have to teach you how to unknot that, The statue from the surface of the nose of the statue's deity all the way down is not the deity. The nose is clay or gold or a paint, and inside are papers and all those things. Inside there is no deity, So seeing the deity, appearance of the the deity is my deity. My deity means emptiness. Seeing the deity means emptiness. Form is emptiness. Tear it. If you're getting attached to it, you have to realize emptiness of the form, remember? If you don't realize emptiness of the form, you might think the form is real. So tear it, rip to shreds at this instant. So why would you call that? The idea is try to ask the mind that now sees the emptiness of self to now dismantle the ego. Dismantle the ego. This leather sack of karma filled with 5 poisonous affliction that mire me in karma samsaric mud. So his analogy is very graphic. So the whole body is like a bag, leather sack of karma filled with the 5 afflictions, poisons that mire me in the karma samsaric mud. Thick mud of samsara, thick mud of samsara. Even if I'm drawn in suffering of the three lorry, yet fearlessly I go after its cause. When we are not really cognizant, we are completely submerged in the sufferings, but yet we still we usually have no way of controlling it. Yet fearlessly I go after its cause. We go and perpetuate the very cause. So that's when when we are seized by the ego, when we are subordinated by the ego or overwhelmed by the ego, that's what we do. We don't like the suffering of the three lorem. We are suffering of the three lorems, yet we are still perpetuating the very cause of it. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of this butcher of enemy, the ego. Though I have so this kind of imploring happens after every paragraph. After every paragraph, as you can see. Though I have high expectation to be happy, yet do not gather its causes. We want to be happy, but we do not gather causes of happiness. Causes of happiness is kindness, tolerance, forgiveness, selflessness, and gratitude and compassion, but we are not trying to gather them. We actually instead of tolerance, we are intolerant. Instead of compassion, we are very, very aggressive. Instead of patient, we are very impatient. Instead of diligent, we are lazy. Instead of taking responsibility, we implicate others. See, this is what we're talking about. Yet do not gather its causes. We are gathering the non-causes as causes. With feeble endurance for pain, we have very little endurance, if at all. Particularly when things get painful, difficult, straight away we want to pull out. Straight away we can't play, we can't do anymore. Because when it's time to do good, straight away when the practice becomes a little too much, then straight away a person no longer doing. Only when they feel good, they're doing it. When the practice started to kick in, when things become a little bit difficult, then straight away they pull out. They say, oh, my leg doesn't work, my back doesn't work, I can't read, I feel sleepy, I have no energy, I got things to do, I got other things to do. All these things, instead of gathering the causes, which are the meritorious causes of humility, tolerance, diligence, and all these things, but no, one actually thinks something else. One thing is I'm sick or I'm not well or whatever. I'm racked with greedy projects to accomplish. I once accomplished so much with greed, but I'm unwilling to gather the necessary causes. So it's like when one is acknowledging this amazing meditation, one is acknowledging this. So Dharmarakshita is talking about how he is recognizing this very uncooperative mind, uncooperative mind. It wants to be happy, but it doesn't want to create the causes. When it requires little effort, it finds difficult. All of a sudden, the difficult dissuade him. And yet I'm so greedy, and to achieve things, but without creating the causes, how can you achieve the cause? How can you achieve the results? So therefore, please dance and trample on the head of this betrayer again, false conception. It needs some belting, so to speak. Mortally strike at the heart of this butcher enemy ego, yet we have so miserable tolerance. Yeah, we have, our tolerance is so small, so they call it so small, or, at least he thinks there's something there. In our society, we call zero tolerance. They don't call miserable tolerance. Miserable, actually, at least there may be few little, maybe 3 or 4 points. But society says zero tolerance. Our tolerance is very little forthcoming. Yet we have so miserable tolerance. We need more tolerance, but we're not willing to put it. Though I desire quick results, yet our efforts to achieve them are feeble. Yeah, we wouldn't mind have quick result, but the effort that is required is very miserable, very small, and inadequate. I pursue many tasks, but there is little success in any one of them. Just why is that? If you're complaining what you don't have, even though you put a lot of effort, it's because of your selfishness. That's what it's saying. If you put a lot of effort, and you're still thankful whatever you have, that's a sign of whatever. I put not much effort, but I still got these amazing things in my life. And then you must have now trampled. The Yamantaka may have got it trampled on you so much that your head has been completely fixed. Fixed to think like that. Fixed to think like that. Even you have not got very much, but you're so contented with the small things you have. You hardly complain much. So if that's happening, of course, there will be a sign. There will be a sign. So I pursue many tasks, but little success in any of them. If you have success in something, then of course, even if in the great success, if you think, oh, I'm great, I did all these things, even that is not so good. That also you have to be a bit careful there. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of this butcher and enemy ego. I may be quick to make new friends. My loyalty friendship lasts miserably short. So it's really looking at oneself. Otherwise, people think it's as other people's problem. Fact that they are not with friends to us, and we think it's them is the problem. We might be able to make good friends, new friends, but how long do they last? The shortness of the loyalty and friendship, the shortness is largely to do with our egotistical, our lack of endurance, our lack of friendship, tolerance, and makes the friendship go very, very short. Of course, doesn't mean that everybody has a very long-lasting friendship. Everything is impermanent, so it shouldn't be too harsh on ourselves, but if you do start to think it's other people who is not cooperative or loyal or friendly or patient or generous, think again. It is interdependent. Why is the friendship short? It takes two to make it short. You may think it's all the other person's fault, but once you're starting to think according to this, it's actually largely my selfishness that has contributed to the shortness, to the disloyalty, to the unfriendliness, that the enmity that one has towards is not entirely their fault. It's largely my fault. Why? No wonder why it's miserably short, because of my own lack of endurance, my own impatience, my own. But I think it's they're not kind to me, or they're not gentle to me, or they're not thoughtful to me, they're not tolerant to me. We think like that. But once you are starting to get this level of understanding of the teaching, you started to own some of the responsibility. Oh, it's my own disloyalty, my own egotistical mind, my own fickleness, my own sort of unreliability and not being consistent. So just as inconsistent as they are, maybe it's good to be healthy to think like that. If not more, at least we are just as inconsistent as they are. Very useful, I think. What do you think? Yeah. Because the benefit of thinking like that is it straight away makes us feel, I have been very, very reasonably critical of other persons. But actually, I have been just as uncooperative, ungenerous, and unskillful as I had previously used to think. It's them that caused the shortness of friendship or whatever. This is not quite right, And now, due to Yamantaka dancing on my head is reforming. my head is reforming to think otherwise. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of the butcher and enemy ego. Though I am skilled at now, so that's 57. 58 is though I'm skilled at flattery and innuendos. It's talking about oneself, talking flattery and innuendos. My discontent runs deep, You try to do all sorts of things, try to use cunning manners, try to get people to listen and so help you or whatever. But deep down, no matter how much people cooperate me and do things, go out of there, still I'm very discontented. Still I think they didn't do enough. Still I think they really haven't helped me. Showing always the discontent run even deeper than they ought to be. So one is recognizing that the more discontent runs deep in us, the more we should think it is due to our selfishness. Whatever they do, we are not thankful. We still complain what they didn't do and don't think about what they did. Greedily amassing wealth. I'm chained by miserliness. So when one is chained with miserable, one is chained by miserliness in amassing, in hoarding, in worrying, in keeping, in protecting, in guarding, in miserly, in using it, giving it, sharing it. All these things are sign of ego, completely attached to ego, and therefore things that the ego thinks it is it. Dance and trample on the head of these betrayers, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of the butcher enemy ego. I'm talking about really discontentment. If you have discontentment, usually our discontentment is what we don't have or what people didn't do to us. We get dissatisfied. People are discontent with friend or father or mother or ex-wife or husband or sister or neighbor or colleagues or whatever. They always think it's not because of them I'm not happy. And most of the time, people are expressing dissatisfaction with somebody else. They never think about, I'm dissatisfied with myself, Of course, sure, you can't do that entirely also, because it is all dependent on each other. When you think about that, I'm being a bit unfair to be discontent with them. I'm very hard to please. And when you start thinking like that, and then straight away, it calms ourselves. Dance and trample on this, If someone dance and trample upon the head of this, of course he will lose his head. He will stop, doing that, and he will be stopped. He will be basically annulled, and then he will be transformed, so to speak. Though sometimes it's good to be humiliated, This is what we're talking about. Good to be humiliated, good to be denounced, good to be put down, good to be criticized, because you can't do them by yourself. So you need a bit of help. you need a bit of help. When you're Lojong practitioner, it's really instead of thinking they're harsh on me, I say I can't do this myself. Thank you, really good. So instead of being and complaining, you feel more as assisted by this. Oh, Lord Sentient being so useful. They do the hardest work. Who wanted to open their mouth like that anyway. Oh, they're actually helping me to recognize my own shadow. I can't see myself. When you start looking like that, then the teaching is gaining some kind of a composition there. Though I have very little love to anyone, so talking about how very little caring and giving thought of others I have. It means you have some, but it's very little. And yet always show wariness how much I've done. Here's your back. You bring someone's back. Here's your back. Here's your shopping. Here's your table. Here's your tent. Do little things, but we think it's too much, how do we know if we have more love? We do something, but we do it with great grace and joy and gratitude, and it's a pleasure. So that would be the one. Of course, this is amazing. Quite a lot of people do that. You can see. Then it's really so much blessing comes from that. When somebody does something, but to show awareness, I just wish you never ask them. We should never wish to have to rely on such sentient beings. And then he does it, but he just does it in such a wrong way. Wish he didn't have to do any of that. Yeah, and then sentient beings are so volatile. Not what you did, but how you did it. It's amazing. Is that. It's the mindfulness is all about like that. It's not so much what you do, but how you do it. Even you did a little bit, just this tender, loving care, TLC they call it. It just did it such skillfully. It was so beautiful. It was tiny thing you did it, but did it in a very elegant way. But even if it did something really great, but if it sort of shows a little bit of wariness, you just totally destroys it. That's what it's talking about here. Dharmakirti is talking, Dharmarakshita is talking to himself, because only when the translators here is a bit of me and a bit of other translators, we sometimes use I and sometimes we use we. There's a bit of mixture going on, because if it as an author, it's Dharmarakshita talking about himself. But as we people who are reading these, we can so call it I or we. But deep down, it's good to understand how wariness, how kartsik in Tibetan we say kartsik. Kar means tiresome. Tsik means expression of tiresomeness. Oh, they're so hard. Hope you wouldn't ask me like this to do again. How about this is the last thing I'll do. That kind of thing. Wariness, There's all this. We have saying also, even prostration, they say, you do 100 prostration. After that, if you say phew, then it's like you show your wariness to yourself. That was so hard. You should do graciously, slowly, and even stop graciously as you will do more any time. But so that kind of thing, I think, is a lot of sort of fineness in the mind, developed level of mind will be able to do that. Though unwilling to do much, yet I boast and brag with conceit. Yeah. that one is actually not willing to do much, but one still thinks, I'll do this, and then I did it. Don't you know I did it? No, the guy brought in the shopping. He brought all the fruit from the villages, and 5-6 villages went through them and bought all their transport in the tractor and brought into the shop. You just went to the shop and brought. He did all the planting, somebody did all the mowing, somebody else did the plowing, somebody did all the pruning and watering and all of that. So how can we say that? Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of this butcher, enemy, ego. 59. I have many great masters. I have many great masters, yet striking our duty, my commitment remains small. Meaning that we are talking about how much we do for our object of reverence or respect or courtesy or love, like parents. Well, maybe there are quite a few people we must honor. That's what I'm saying. I have many great masters, and maybe few people, our parents, our brothers, our boss, or teacher, or best friend, or whoever they are. We have many, but yet when we want to do 4 things, I don't want to do this for him, not today. I've done this already a few times for him. So it's like shirking our duty. My commitment remains small. I've done my bit. as though I've done too much already. So you got to very mean and very calculative. Though I have many disciples, so many of these disciples doesn't mean necessarily have to be. In his case, it is. He had Atisha as a disciple, so he can easily say that I have many. But he's talking about people who are junior or helpers or those we are doing mentoring. Though I have many disciples, yet don't ever help them. I really don't help them. There are lots of nieces and nephews or juniors or equals or people who really ask help, and it really comes to help, you don't really help them. You act as though you are their helper or master or friend or guardian or mother or the brother or uncle, but actually you haven't really done anything really. When it comes to doing, you're very hesitant. Don't ever help them. Of course, this is a bit exaggeration. You do help. Because Dharmarakshita is in his kind of fierce mood, Yamantaka, with the spear and dagger and everything, and to strike at ego. He says, you haven't done anything, ever help anything. Though I have. It feels like that sometimes, You're supposed to be a friend to somebody, but you really haven't helped them. You haven't really done anything to them, make them really appreciate it. It's just small bits and he's and these. So, dance and trample upon this head of this betrayal. Because sometimes they think that we have done too much to the children or something. As if the children, we brought them out, we make them to come out. So yet we think we've done too much to them, And even though we have done them, but the wariness we show, it just completely makes them feel sour. They wish they never had to put up this again, Always showing how much we have done to them, just makes them feel, So they feel what we have done is so. I wish they never had to take any of help, They say, take your money away. Take your dirty things away. That's exactly when they don't feel really given. And they don't appreciate, because they can feel that you really didn't really want to give it. So give it. You did it unwillingly. You did it with some kind of conditions and almost like with some causes, some clauses, so to speak. Some clauses and causes. All these clauses, ifs, all the conditional clauses. If you do this next Friday, you can have that. If you mow the lawn, you can take the car. That sort of thing, that sort of thing, very, 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 very kind of mean and calculative, and almost the person really wishes, is it worth it, is it worth it, and every time they do, it really wasn't worth it, but they have to because they needed it. And then they also will do it unwillingly. And this can then create a lot of tension, a lot of problem between the two. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer. I think it's my child, or I think it's my neighbor, I think it's my son, or whatever. No, it's my own ego. I'm trying to be the kind of boss. I'm trying to be in charge. I should have my way because I'm the head of the family. You do my way go by my way, my rule. Quite a lot of parents do that, isn't it? Make the kids feel not equal, and quite a lot of them really resent that, I think. Whatever you help didn't really get them at all. They feel so unloved and respected when you say that you do my way. No matter what we did, I don't think they'll appreciate it. If you feel them, it's all yours, my dear. But be careful how to do it. It's all yours. It's not mine. But in the meantime, skillfully moderating them for their own benefit, but never use a word that is mine and you got to do my way. I think hurts the feeling of the poor young ones. Quite a lot of children, so they don't want to live anymore under the same roof as the parents because even one day is a torture. They just rather live in the street. Really? Why rich people kids end up in the street? Is it because they got no room? No, they got plenty of rooms. Is it because they got no food? No, there's plenty of food. There's no kindness. There's no wisdom. No humility. No real love. They have love, but completely confused with control. No, they care, but their care is just controlling and subordinating and make them feel guilty. And that completely is poisonous food. And yes, parent-children relationship is not because child is inherently bad. It's the parents themselves are still child. Themselves are acting as though they are still completely controlled by this ego. They don't have loving humility and compassion. They will never be betrayed by children if they are unconditionally kind and wise. They have been unwisely controlling, giving but controlling, saying things that just hurts them. These things are the ego. Demon of ego is so difficult to recognize unless one have really, really heeded to these Dharmarakshita's amazing sayings and relate to themselves as ourselves. And then completely change our mode of relating to young and others. That they just see, what happened with my dad? What happened with mom? He's so loving. They don't feel like taking much. They don't need much now because they're now getting love. Now getting real love and respect and courtesy and still equal and still respected. When they know that, and then they really, really, that's what they needed long time. That was they needed all the time. They didn't need all the things. The things aren't making people happy. Those rich parents actually shower kids with things but never care and attention and time. They don't spend time with the kids. They don't do things with them. And as a result of that, kids feel neglected and almost forgotten. They are busy making 6-digit or more income, but they have no 1-digit time to spend and time and give mindfully for care and kindness. And this is exactly the first world people where this high rate of suicide is youth suicide is because of such poverty of love, destitution of kindness, and so much money for what? So much material for what? They have no time for each other. When they are time poor, they are poor already. the destitution of care and attention for each other's well-being is what is plaguing this developed world. And developed in what? Ego. Developed egotistically, not developed spiritually, and kindness and care. See, these messages of Dharmarakshita is really needed to be heeded by every individual. There's not a single person to whom this is not irrelevant. This is not relevant. You don't have to be Buddhist to relate to this. This just has to be an ego to be related to this. So everybody is ego-driven. Everybody's got an I, me, and mine. Have an ID, have an iPad, have an iPhone. They all need this. They all need this. So they don't have to be a believer in reincarnation. They don't have to be a believer in the karma. They just have to be a believer in the fault of the I, and I, the foremost important one. Failing to see the fault of that, then they do the very thing that are harmful to their own loved kid, their own loved ones, and they don't even know they're doing that. It's a huge problem we're talking about. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of the butcher, the enemy, ego. I have many great masters. I think we've done that. We've done that already. Going back to the next paragraph. Though eager to make promises, yet my help remain minimal. Yeah, meaning that I'll do this. A lot of I wills, but not many things one does. So talking about eager to make promises, and yet when it comes to doing, one is a minimalist. Do as little as possible. Or thinking as I did that last time, I don't want to do this. I did this 2 years, I don't want to do this. That kind of thing. It's like saying, I have eaten last 2 years, I don't want to eat this year. Nobody thinks like that. I got paid for the last 20 years, I don't want to pay today. But nobody does that, I've been working 20 years. Where's the bonuses? Where the super? So one makes promises, but what one does is very, very minimalist. Though my fame may be great, yet if I am examined, even the gods, demons are appalled. So see, talking about saying that even the gods, demons can see whether how much I'm really worthy of the name and fame or whatever people think you are, But this is just an empty name, really. Actually, I lack any of the praises. Those praises are generosity of the people. It's dangerous for my ego. Haven't done anything sufficient, but yet they think I did them all. They're not really helping me. They should tell me I haven't done anything right. So if they name you and they blame you, it's good. If you have very famous and you think people love you and you think you're great, check carefully whether you're deserving of these hollow names or not, because most of them are other people's doing, other people's generosity, other people's helping. And what we cannot do much on our own, really. We just play a small, almost insignificant role. But yet we wanted to wear the name and recognition of that. That's a very, very dangerous. Demons and gods are appalled at this. Therefore, dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, the false conception, mortally strike at the heart of this butcher, the enemy, the ego. Though I'm weak in learning, so this is talking about that our knowledge or study is very, very very small. The temerity for empty words is great. Is arrogantly saying as one knows a lot. I say, I read Sanskrit, but I don't really read Sanskrit. Maybe just couple of the words I can recognize. Most of them I don't know. It's like that. So you can say, I learned Sanskrit. Yeah, but you barely know much. You can really barely say you went to school, but you went to school to forget it. Yeah, you went to school, things like that, like many other things. Of course, this doesn't mean to belittle oneself, but just cautioning the danger of thinking what I know. What I know is very little bit. Though my knowledge is slight, I meddle in all kinds of topics. So stay in just one topic. Just keep talking Lojong, keep talking the fault of ego. Safe. If you just keep talking about this Lojong, it is really safe, Even though you are physicists and best in the town, or you're the best known philosopher or the engineer or whatever, he says, I know nothing. I meddle in all kinds of topics. It just means one has to have humility. I almost say that I really don't know this, but I have to pretend as I know this. Among the fools, I'm a bit a knowledgeable person, but among the wise, I'm fool, truly fool. So since there are more fools than me, maybe it's okay type of thing, Of course, that in many ways, it's just one has to be. One is even if you have knowledge, but it's really good to be humble with the knowledge. That's what we're really talking about, In the modern world, the knowledge, intellectual property, and my knowledge, my original study, my research. Oh, you wouldn't believe how much of that is quite an intellectual materialism. Intellectual materialism is making the knower not better with the knowledge, and because he doesn't know, he doesn't remember, he learned from all the teachers, he read all the books, he collect all the data from all other people's writings. He doesn't say that, because this whole individualism, it's his work as its original work, which is very dangerous. This whole ego, most people who are materially learned in modern, just materialistic intellectualism, you can see they're really, really complicated. They're really unhappy. They really are more screwed up by the knowledge and arrogance of it. They don't have any humility. They don't have any gratitude. And when they have no humility and gratitude and kindness, and then what is their knowledge for? Just to blow the ego in a big disproportionate size, and that's why it's a lot of the places aren't really. There isn't got any kind of a feeling of a knowledge center. It's like a battleground. You will, firstly, between faculties. Secondly, between departments. And thirdly, within the different persons within the department. It's amazing. Just toxic. You wouldn't believe, particularly when the knowledge are compartmentalized, because all knowledge in modern is compartmentalized. Whatever it is, in arts, in science, or in European studies or Asian studies. God, you just nest a problem. In Asian studies, forget it. Chinese studies, Japanese studies, Indonesian studies, Thai studies, Korean studies. Now, who's going to get more money and more funding? And and if you are a professor in Indonesian and you want to get all the money for your research, who want to give it to the Korean? Whatever. Oh, gosh, I couldn't believe when I saw those things happening. Just whoever is more aggressive, whoever has a fellow, of course, within the departments, I and you will fight against him. But soon within the department, you and me fighting. And within the three supervisors, they're fighting. Yes, gosh. You can see people are so overeducated, but for the wrong reasons. That's why highly educated society, but mostly really screwed up. And so arrogant they wouldn't take any jobs. But that job. How many jobs are there for that? Not many. And so if you have 3 very good students coming up about to finish their PhD, you are threatened. Yes. Got a lot of them. They really don't want that student to do well. And so hardly some of them actually even recruit students. Some of the professors, they never recruit any students. They just apply for their own grants and research, and they're actually not good at recruiting students to become good things that will succeed them. So when they depart, they get nothing to show. Why? Because it's ego-driven, individualistically driven, ego-driven, educational, and what is called materialism, intellectual materialism. So that's why the whole society are highly educated people, but a lot of people with huge emotional and egotistical and mental problems because of the competitiveness. There's no humility and no gratitude towards each other. Though I may have many attendants and friends, yet no one obeys me. So this is talking about you may have a lot of friends and things to work with, but very few respect or listens to each other. So this is not so much they're not listening to you or heedful to you, but because you might have shown your egotistical pressure or a little bit of too much of controlling, too much of a my way only type of thing. Of course, people don't want to work with such person. It's just obvious as that. Even your friends become no friends. When they say when friends become foes. There is a group called Friends of the Western Friends of the Western Buddhist Order. Yeah. So if the F stays always friends, would be good. Sometimes it becomes foes of the whatever. yeah. All the foes are past friends. Oh, the foes are past friends. Why? Because they said, let's become foes now. No, they found each other's ego too much. Each other's ego too much, and they can't be bothered to be friend with you. And so, meaning they become foes. Why did it? Because your ego would have appeared to be a little bit too dictatorial. Too dictatorial and not respecting them. Same with parents and children. Same with loved ones. Why is like that? Some may part their ways, they're not enemies. Others part their ways and they're enemies. So the fact they are enemies, if they are apart, is because if not both, one has definitely been more dictatorial and a bit too much for the other to accept or respect anymore. They can't do it, so they just hate the person because that's all the memory they have. Where the person spoke with great egotistical, not a respectful command, but a disrespectful, violent, abusive command. It will not be remembered nicely, and therefore the person becomes enemies. And they're not only enemies, they have enmity to the person. When someone who has enmity, some people will not be harmed by other people's enmity. Other people will be really subjected to a lot of distress and despair when someone have enmity to them, because they themselves has not owned it yet, and they think it's their fault. And then they also counter-react, counter-enmity. So mutual enmity is ill will bring a lot of disasters. Yeah, people who have a lot of mutual enmity, a lot of disasters. They have health disasters, they have financial disasters, they have all kinds of disasters. And when not mutual enmity, if one person has enmity towards you, but you have loving kindness, you know it's your fault, like they're saying, please trample on this Yamantaka, please help me, because otherwise I'm also becoming more enmity-ridden than as much as my friend. Please let me help to calm myself down. That's what it is saying. This is more practical thing, you know. So please trample this ego, means please stop this me counteracting to them with the enmity. Though I may feel I have friends in positions of power, yet should I need help, I am left on my own. So there's times that you thought you have a lot of helpers, you thought you have a lot of people who will do kindly, but when you really need, there's no one helping you. Why is that? Because you want your way. You never have conciliatorily work with people. If you did, you will always get the help. But because of your way of doing has not attracted them, not calmed them, not tamed them, not befriended them, hence, you know, of course, then you are abandoned. You are unwanted. They don't want to help you. Who won't help you when your ego is that unpleasant? So they are powerful, they are rich, they can do, but they will not do. Why? Because you're very abrasive. Your own ego and your so when somebody is abrasive, someone is not willing to do or with you, it's good to think it's my ego may have been a bit abrasive and aggressive and a bit sort of unpleasant to them. It must be the case. When we do that, it's really helpful. Because then you wouldn't be trying to dig up them. You just straight, oh, this is my ego, you know. When you're able to understand, though I may have high status, my qualities remain less than ghosts, you know. So we may have some certain status in name or position or responsibility, whatever, but I don't have any comparable qualities. It warrants the status and the name and the position. Now that is a very important way to think like that. They call empty name, you know. Most of the names are just empty. They're just empty of inherent existence. So I don't really deserve this status. I don't really deserve this position or responsibility. I don't do much, you know. I don't have those qualities. My qualities are just miserable. And so when you start thinking like that, at least you will see some room for improvement, you know. Some room for just being able to think like that is a bit of a quality already. A bit of a good quality that finally came, like after a long drought. Of saying I have no quality is a very good drizzle, you know, drizzle. At least soak the surface of the earth. Though may I be a great teacher, my affliction remain worse than a demon's. So meaning said that even if you are a teacher, like in this case Dharma, you know, because the Dharma teacher teaches how to control the afflictions. If one's affliction is not recognized or highlighted and tamed and changed, it's shameful. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer. False conception mortally strike at the heart of this butcher and enemy, ego. Of course, anyone who teaches, usually most people when they try to get a teaching job, they will say how many years of knowledge you have, how many years of experience you have. You've got to tell all these things you have. But once you start doing teaching, you might not have any of the things, you know. Then you realize how much you lack. You know? So that's the, you know. usually in the kind of monastic situations, when somebody is appointed, they never compete to get the position. It's never considered to be the way to go. If someone appoints you, you just try to excuse yourself. Possible. Please, I'm least qualified. I don't have this. I don't have. They just go and list. They try to excuse themselves out of that. Go to the main head or something. I don't have this. I'm not diligent. I'm not reliable. I don't know the things. You usually go and try to excuse to get out of the job. They say he's good. He's really good. He's really good. He's really intelligent. He's really hardworking. They try to push each other like that. In that kind of society. And sometimes makes everybody very timid and very shy. And so it's interesting whether overall it's very good. It actually sort of hints the danger of ego. it encourages humility and so on. Whether that makes everybody a little bit incompetent or fearful, or that probably is I think that's a different way of I would say recruiting or training people. I think. If you train people to be competent in which you are competent, it's okay, but it's not overcompetent, not overconfident, as you're the best type of attitude will be the kind of hazardous thing what we're talking about. Though my views may be lofty, yet my conducts are worse than dogs. Maybe, so it's talking about views of realizing emptiness, or saying, we know the real, our school's got the real right view. We got the real, Prasangika Madhyamika view is the only view that our school has. You might have a very intellectually very lofty view, but your conducts are no good. You're so arrogant. So that's talking about that. Though my qualities may be many, the fundamentals ones are lost to the winds. So one might have many different qualities, but the very fundamentals are not there. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception. Mortally strike at the heart of this butcher, enemy, ego. I harbor all my self-centered desires deep within. So this is talking about how what particular self-centered desires one is actually looking after. For all my disputes, I laugh at others for no reason. I always think it's somebody else's fault, and then laugh at them, look at them, put down them, rather than recognizing my own self-centeredness. So it's just when people start doing this, when there are people arguing, they tend to do that. When they're arguing, they each other pointing finger. That's the reason why they're arguing. They can't agree who has more faults. But if there is a practitioner who's been tamed by Yamantaka, he says, "Oh, my fault. It's none of your problem." Then the other person have got not much to say. He at least agree. So they couldn't argue with you. They're really relieved. Or at least this person admits his inconsistency. Amazing. There will be very short-lived argument. One who is chastised and overcome by Yamantaka, he would not be acting like that. Acting like that. For all my disputes, I laugh at others for it, no reason. And I think anything I'm arguing with is things, the faults of others, and laughing at them, and almost highlighting what they're doing is unreasonable, sort of acceptable, and thinking one is quite easy to laugh at others without recognizing one's own faults or inconsistency. Dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conceptions. Mortal strike at the heart of this butcher, the enemy and ego. So we'll stop there, but maybe little discussions if you have. If not, we'll conclude here. It's a different, interesting text, isn't it? very interesting text, to say the least. It's a challenging, and it's pertinent and relevant to everyone. Straight away makes us to look at review many things, review our past, and experiences in a very, very kind way, very useful way. And it's not meaning to be self-bashing, by the way. This is not self-bashing. It's really being kind to oneself and look after well-being of oneself. It's the language and the analogies the Dharmarakshita uses, a very kind of ferocious Vajrayana, fierce compassion.
My head.
That's right.
I'm getting stomped on.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So is there is there a technique like when you're confessing that you've been selfish and you're digging all the dirt and releasing it and acknowledging it and you can see it? Is there a way to, I know you were saying binding it.
Yeah.
But is there another?
Reforming your attitudes, because it mainly means it's not so much the external yamataka will do any of the thing. It's talking about recognizing. Arrest means the recognizing what is the ego doing until this far, and when you arrest him, then you will solve all the problems, because then you have recognized the culprit, so to speak, and then of course it couldn't do no further damage. So in many ways we are learning to withdraw our anger or blaming or resentment and towards others, and nor are we developing resentment to ourselves. We're actually binding this harmful ego that is harming not only others but oneself as well. When this way of binding is stop the harm it is causing mutually to others as much as oneself. When this way of owning one's responsibility is not harming others, therefore it's helping ourselves just as well with it. It's a win-win situation, so to speak, because while language and metaphors are bind and arrest and kill or and pierce and so on, it's mainly talking about unpacking all the problems. Unpacking it, because right now most of the people who don't do this, their problem is they just think it's him, they think it's them, they think it's whatever. They're just so opinionated. They're not going to break that opinion. They think the opinion they have of the past or experience is real, and that's it. It doesn't need breaking, it doesn't need polarizing, it doesn't need changing. We are not willing to go there. We don't want to change the subject. We think that's exactly the view that we had, and we don't want to change our view. Now here it's talking about Yamantaka, that when we look at, you completely turn things upside down. So then you realize that all your opinions and perceptions were wrong, and now you are not actually beating yourself. You're beating the unseen problems. Unseen problems. Now one is seeing the real problems, and then the past that which we wasted time in thinking that has to be rejected. This is the beating that one has to suffer. One has to suffer, but that suffering is good suffering now. And this is a good suffering. He says, please beat me, please harm me, please wake me up. It's like a form of a good torture. Please beat me, I deserve this. Then I'll wake up. Yeah.
I still have problems with change, though. Change in the notion that if you constantly don't react to others' bad behaviour, and I know that, ourselves are implicated, then that other person's behaviour is going to continue. So, in a sense, you're perpetuating trouble in life for others, because that person's going to go to another person and repeat their behaviour. So how do we resist, how do we change those around us in a good way, because the other might see us as weak and pathetic and, oh yes, I can bully you, okay, I can go and bully someone else now. How do you reconcile that with others?
Yeah, that is the biggest concern most people have, and this question was raised very, very long time. Got a lot of thinkers, as well as we are. We often think like that this teaching seems very ideal, but how can we stop? Is it not my responsibility to stop this person harming him or her? People really think that's what their duty is, and they think. And by doing that, people have fought wars, and war has never stopped. So then, therefore, the teaching really says that, of course, the person who is doing harm to others is something we can show great concern for, But what could you really do that is really effective? Most people think is harming the person, stopping the person will be effective, But that has never stopped. People have done that, but it has not stopped the problem. But it has escalated. It may have put a little dent on the person for the time being, but his brother, his community rose up, and then actually it seemed like you might cause a little bit problem stopping that, but it did not. So people have fought race against race, gender against the other gender, group against group, doing this, and actually has brought more sort of reinforcement, enemy or anger, for them to think when you're doing that, he and his friend doesn't think you are stopping their problem. They think, how can we stop her? She's doing this to me. We should stop her. So both are in that party. If one of the two is altruistically inclined, then this is a question of altruistic inclination, absence of altruistic inclination. If you have altruistic inclination, like Shantideva says, I can't possibly find enough leather to cover whole world or stop this kind of person. If I don't stop this, he will stop everybody. He will harm everybody, and the world will be just completely harmed by this person. So I might as well go and help stop him. But once you stop him, his brother, his uncle, others will come. And then how many lifetimes you got to stop such people in the world, And then you will never have enough leather. You will never have enough stamina to stop such things. But if I contain my own anger, then I can do best. Even though, so it's like if I cover my own soles of the feet with leather, then it is equivalent to covering the whole world, Wherever I go, at least I will contain. So there is, of course, perception by people that we are actually, in many ways, not taking responsibility to stop someone from doing that. Everybody wants to say, I'm trying to stop any child being abused, and therefore they do all sorts of things against child abuse that are, go in great length. Sure, the society at large is always trying to educate each other so that we can minimize child abuse or whatever it is. But any kind of reactive, aggressive, violent way of doing that has never stopped the problem, but it actually has escalated. We can bring a lot of resolutions, laws, punishment against it, but until individuals themselves are tamed and come to their conscience, the real problem doesn't get solved. So temporarily, it seems to look like a very defeating for us, having to looks like we can't really. We have to accept some defeat when somebody does that to us. We feel it's my responsibility to stop him from doing that. There is this kind of temptation to everybody doing that. Hardly there's anybody who doesn't do that. Doesn't need teaching, doesn't need classes, doesn't need books, doesn't need education. Everybody does that. It's a very animal instinct to do that. And hence the world, however much materially and technologically, in many ways we're developing much, still the zero tolerance that it is expounding is based on this idea, I want to stop this from happening to other people. So tempting. So I mean, in many ways, the intention is good. There's no doubt about that. But will that really stop? No. They don't realize this person got a father, this person got a mother, this person got brothers, or that group people got an Assyrian. So even if we do this, someone else comes and try to retaliate us, take revenges. And this goes on completely. Inherited hatred. All these wars that going in the Middle East are all inherited an aggression, thinking one can stop the other from doing that. If there is a truce, if there is a really peace initiative from one, sometimes even that is taken advantage by others, you know, and even when people do make a truce, if the intention is to get to regroup themselves so they can attack again, it wouldn't work. But in the end, someone's got to find an initiative that not many people are taking. This idea of stopping somebody from causing more harm to others is everybody's doing that unhesitatingly. Maybe a few may not do it because for whatever reason, but majority are doing that without any kind of. They don't even need encouragement. It's kind of instinct for people to do that. It's instinct to do that, but it's not necessarily most intelligent way. It has been thought through by people, but unless the root cause of suffering, which is the ego and selfishness, is recognized, it will only escalate. It might stop a little while, but then again. It's like waiting to ambush. The other one, remembering what we did, will wait in ambush when they can attack back. And that's exactly happening. All this crisis in the world is just that because the other one tried to stop them, thinking they're the one, Communists call PLA People's Liberation Army. They don't call themselves Red Army. They are, they're there to liberate people. But people who are harmed by them, they don't call liberators. They call the invaders. So, and of course, the one fights the other as the other one is the invader or intruder. Like they call who is terrorist? Who is terrorist to whom? Of course, society usually thinks the terrorists are the do this. Then others see that the others are even bigger terrorists. They are the cause of terrorists who actually sell all the weapons and so on. And so this kind of try to solve problem physically is one that world has always tried. Try to solve the problem emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, and humanely. Is it possible? It can definitely minimize the problem. I don't know whether it can completely stop the problem, but it can definitely give a breathing space for people to realize, no, this is not the way to go. Let's surrender all these weapons of harm to each other and let's make peace. If there is a very strong kind of case, and it can yield peace. And quite a lot of situations, a lot of the problem we call civilized world. Nowadays, they always say diplomatic solution. They always saw diplomatic solution. They can easily solve the problem by decimating the enemy. And all of them have such power, but they know it's not going to work. They are not alone. If you destroy this, their neighbor will think otherwise. And then, all of a sudden, you thought you had one enemy, but you end up all enemies. End up surrounded by all enemies. And they used to think like that. And that's what they call allied forces. They try to make many people to ally yours first, and then others are non-allied. They're complete opposite. And that's why the whole divisive world is fought on the basis of thinking who is right and who's wrong. And it's only relative. It's right and wrong is only relative from each other. The one who really sees the futility of both parties' aggression and mutual harm, and one try to see a sane and humane way to solve the problem. Never mind what has happened, but from here onwards, let's not do this from both sides. At least I won't do it. If the other one is not doing it all, then I'm sure by the power of the truth of kindness and altruism, it will bring some relief. And however short that it is, at least some relief is better than no relief at all. But the idea of not doing, we are suggesting, of course, we don't even have to. Everybody doing that, So there's no danger of people not trying that. So there's no danger of people not trying that. It's question how much of that is warranted and has a good return so far. Most people have very miserable returns, miserable benefit, hardly any benefit. And so it has only made everybody is deprived of peace and happiness, victory or solace. None of them found any of that by resorting to stop this other person. So that's why stop, it says, like the Buddha says, stop. He talks about the suffering and how to stop it. This nirodha, see, this stoppage he's talking about is the root cause of the stop. That root cause is this really ignorance of self-grasping. And one who yields this comprehension and understanding, of course, is really, really quite unnormal. Very majority of people wouldn't do that, and so that's why very few people would do that. Why? Because very few people have the mentality and comprehension to understand the depth and breadth of these teachings. Most are lost in the material forms, physical forms. They don't look at their own mind and how much it needs to understand itself, and then see everybody as a reflection of that rather than them as independently existing things. So when anyone, even on a smaller scale, when we're starting to change our attitude just towards someone in a very small, mild problem, but when you start changing that, we are no longer aggressive and negative, and towards them we start feeling sorry for them because we haven't helped them, and then therefore their own difficulties are escalated by us not being very cooperative. We start feeling a little sorry and forgiving and compassionate to them. Then you can see that how much friendly we are towards them. In our mind, we have a lot of friendly feeling towards them. We don't have any ill intent to do anything to harm them. Even if they say things, they do these, we can try to avoid directly affecting us, but making us more compassionate. In fact, they do the things they do. Not offended by them, not sort of harmed by them, but feel aware, increase our awareness of the compassion, or what must be like to be doing that. It must be awful, trying to think that they can find a peace, a solace, a victory by doing that. They're trying to tempt me to do that. I will not do it. I will not do it at all. Whatever temporal defeat and abuse and harm I have to take, let it be the real peace. Let it be the real reason why that I will stop. I'll stop. What I allege them doing is wrong. If I allege what they're doing is wrong, I can't do that to stop that. That cannot stop that. Kerosene cannot stop fire. So stop in this case is a real stop. Even though you have to risk your legs, even you risk your hand. Yeah, even you risk your land. Yeah, It's not worth killing people if they're not going to be people to live on the land. Let him have the land. Even if we have to put our feet on the water and float on the water, it's okay. At that time you might be walking on the water by then. But definitely you wouldn't drown. We're saying there's nothing to stand on. You will have plenty to stand on. I think that's what peace is. Peace means give up the fight and accept the inconveniences and stop the aggression that you think is a problem. Don't stop the aggression by aggression, because it doesn't stop aggression. It escalates the problem, aggression. Temporarily it looks like it. Temporarily it looks like it will stop. But wait until they regroup themselves. You know all these legal battles, people. They first go to the district court, and then they take higher, just to completely mutually destroy each other. That's all they succeed. Did they stop at the verdict? No. Did they honor the verdict? No. They want to overturn the verdict. Why? They can hire another one. Because they can pay the money. You see? That's the whole thing, It's amazingly. This is why the materialistic world is so misdriven, driven in the wrong direction in the search for truth and justice. The real truth is the sorrow and what it's caused by. Sorrow is caused by selfishness and ignorance of it. And that's why it takes a lot of listening and thinking to get it, and to truly honor the Buddha, truly appreciate the mind and heart of a person who conceived these things as a right living, Whereas others are going in the different direction, opposite direction, They'll sort of give banners or badges to wear because he killed many people. That kind of way of honoring each other is quite a hollow, really, a hollow honor. Of course, it's we can't be saying that from the point of view as to denigrate the patriotism or nationalism feeling, but for the sake of the danger of the ego, it usually is. Why did so many people die there? Because they wanted to defeat the enemy.
Is it ignorant, though, to ignore the bad behaviour? Or you perceive it to be bad behaviour? Is it ignorant to ignore someone's behaviour if you think that it's threatening to you? Or even like the world leaders at the moment, is it ignorant to ignore threats of nuclear power?
No. Of course, we should do some things. Education, diplomacy, that's what they call education, diplomacy, dialogue, prevention, all this understanding and promoting mutual understanding. When all the leaders meet, they already shake hands and everything is normal. Otherwise, they're saying war of words. All over looks like there's a war. I mean, there's no need for war at all. They just need to talk, and they say another friend, and they want a neighborly, friendly friend. They don't want anybody disrupting each other's well-being, let alone firing missiles. If they just went and talked to each other and not talk bad things, even your distance, that would be really courtesy, respect. Not calling names to each other. They do that. Even, they call it the name. All this internet. They have this press. They have a press release or something. Press conference is always war of words, first of all. But when they meet together, they start talking. They realize this is a nice person. He really wanted to help you. Oh, really? You want to help me? Thank you. Straight away. Who is the problem? Oh, that's the whole thing. You need to dialogue. This Dalai Lama says, this is a century of dialogue. This is where we are much closer to each other than ever before. Go and meet, talk, and then you air the misunderstandings. And there isn't really anything to fight on. We need to share. We need to. We are so dependent on each other's technology, each other's knowledge. So everybody needs each other's company and assistance and help and produce and all of this. We need to buy things. We need to sell things. We can't all live on calls. And so on. When everybody's so dependent, if they talk in a very mutual language, if there's a very conciliatory language, if the leaders use, there wouldn't be any of this tension. Where does the tension come? Yeah, that's right. So if they talk a little bit more courteously, respectfully, then all the problems are already settled. Really, all of a sudden, that's poor countries that has been whose division, whose stress is caused by each other's greediness and protectionism and so on. And when the world leaders come together and meet regularly and understand, then it will be solved. It's like two brothers who are at odds and not meeting and not talking. If they just met together and air each other's concern and compassion to each other and make sure how the other one is and start talking like that, and then of course there will be a beginning of a opening, And that's what it's really talking about, how taming the ego really means. So with this we will conclude here. Thank you for the discussion, and let's conclude the dedication merits. By this merit may we attain the state of omniscience and defeat every enemies of defilement. May I liberate all sentient beings from the samsara oceans, travel away of birth, all this sickness and death. By listening to the excellent and precious Mahayana teachings, whatever boundaries merit I have acquired, may all sentient beings become precious and strenuous vessels to retain the excellent and precious Mahayana teachings. May the supreme and precious bodhicitta take birth, we had not done so, where it has been born, may it increase abundantly without degeneration.